Hey, this is Dan from UserSpice.com, and I wanted to walk you through some of the basics of writing a really simple plugin. Before we even get started, I'll let you know there's basically nothing in this plugin that you couldn't do by modifying your template or putting some code in the user C folder, but there are three major advantages to having a plugin. The first one is that you can share this code. You can share it with the world. You can write it not only for yourself, but anybody in the world can use the feature that you write. The second one is it makes it really easy to just take this thing from project to project. The thing that we're writing is going to be extremely helpful in diagnosing problems in your projects, and so just being able to take it and copy it to 7 of your projects without worrying about breaking anything else is awesome. And the third thing is, especially with this kind of plugin, you can turn it on and off at will. There's no reason to have this plugin running 24/7. There's no reason to be using the resources, so you can just turn it on and off as you need it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the user C plugins folder, and we're just going to copy the demo plugin. And so I'm going to copy it, and then we're going to give our plugin a name, and so I'm going to call it Performance Checker. Performance Checker. And then I'm going to open this up as its own project in my code editor, and you'll see why in a minute. I'm going to do some finding and replacing that's just a lot easier knowing that I'm just staying in this folder, and just is a faster way to do it. So I'm going to find in my entire project, I'm going to do case sensitive. And anywhere where there's a folder called demo, I'm going to rename it Performance Checker. And this is just so that everything has the same name, Performance Checker, Performance Checker. So I'm going to find all, and I'm going to replace. And then the next thing I'm going to do is anywhere where the name was written on this plugin, it was capital. So I'm going to do demo, and I'm going to call it Perfor Checker. Okay, so this will make sense in 1 second. So we're going to find all and replace. And then what happens is we're going to go in our info XML, and you'll see that this is already configured for us. And now it says Performance Checker plugin because we renamed it and all that kind of stuff. We are going to just be a boss, and we're just going to call it 1.0.0 from the beginning because we're going to write this well. So I'm going to say April 12th, 2019 is when I released it. A few of the features we're using in here may only work in 09 and later, 4.4.09 and later. But we're just going to leave it as 4.4, and I think that'll be fine. So we'll put that in the description. So, okay, then this is the performance checker. We're going to just give it a different description. Help find, let's see, helps find bottlenecks in your code by checking the performance of each page. Okay, and then there's really not going to be anything to configure, so we're going to put a button here called plugin details, and that'll give us the page. So before we do anything, let's just let's go to UserSpice, and we can close this for now, and we're going to refresh the page, and you'll see immediately that you have another plugin here that helps find bottlenecks and all that other information. Now it sees that we have the same logo as before, so let's go ahead and fix that while we're at it. I'm going to open up the plugin. Let me get here for a second. User C plugins. I know I'm off the screen. Performance checker. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to drag in, I have just a random image here, it's a PNG image, and I'm going to rename that as logo.png. And when I come back here to this page, I should be able to refresh, and now we have the little engine logo and the description and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to uninstall it and then just reinstall it, even though nothing really happened. And you can see we can go to the plugin details, and there's, nothing going on there. So let's take care of that. Let's go to this page. This configure page is where you would write that kind of code. Now we don't have any forms, there's no settings, there's nothing to do here. So let's just goof around here, and we're gonna say welcome to. Let's do this. I guess I can do welcome to. All right, and then we can get rid of anything referencing forms since we're not doing a form here. And then, let's see here. We'll just get rid of all that. Okay, and then we're going to write just some basic HTML. And let's do one more break here. We don't have much on the page, so let's give ourselves some room. And we'll say this plugin checks your page load times. If you would like to help make it more powerful, come talk to us at Discord. Now we'll say on the Discord channel. Okay, and then we're just gonna, obviously it really doesn't matter, but I'm gonna make another one and I'm gonna say the UserSpice team. Okay, so that's it. I can get rid of the stray form tag down here, and now that's what will come up on the page if you click the details button. We'll go back to that when we get there. So when you look at these things, you can basically have it run routines when you activate the program. Like say for instance you need to copy some files, or you need to put something in the database, or you need to anything like that. You can have it every time it activates, it can run a routine here, and generally you're going to want to do that right in this space. We don't need to do that. There's a similar thing for install. So every time it installs, again, if you need to create a database table, if you need to copy some files, you can do that on install. So again, this one is the first time they install it, and this one is when they activate it. There's another one here that when they deactivate the program, do you want to do anything? In this case, we don't really have anything to do, so we can just leave that blank. And yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to go to the footer. And this is a feature that's been updated a little bit in 4.4.09. But I'm going to close this. Actually, come to think of it, I'm going to close this and I'm going to open up the entire UserSpice project. So I close this and I have the whole thing here. This is everything, not just that one plugin folder. And you can see that I wrote some JavaScript here on the home page, and I'll kind of go over it in a minute. But we're going to go back to our plugin, and we're going to go to the performance checker, and we're going to go to the footer of the page. And you'll see nothing's really going on there, but we're going to paste this JavaScript. And what this JavaScript does is that when the page is finished loading, it is going to give us some information in milliseconds of how long it took to load it. And right now, it's just going to load it to the console. So if you work with JavaScript, that's familiar to you. But we're going to just let that hang out there. I'm going to save that. And we're going to go to the header. If you've done much with JavaScript or jQuery, you're familiar with being able to update something after the page loads. And so what we're going to do, I'm going to close my PHP tags, and we're going to put a set of span tags here. And what the span tags are going to do is they're just going to give us a place to stick something. They're just going to kind of be a placeholder right now. So I'm going to give it an ID, and I'm going to call that ID something really crazy that there's just no chance it's going to conflict with anything on any page. And I'm going to call it plugin performance checker. Okay? And then I'm just going to save that. And I'm going to come back to the footer, and we're going to write some real simple jQuery. You could do it in vanilla JavaScript. I just like jQuery. So I'm going to do ID, and then I'm going to do plugin performance checker. And what I'm going to do is tell it that inside the HTML there, to put this variable called load time. And that was one that this JavaScript made. So I have a variable here, and we're going to put load time in there when the page is done loading. And to be honest, that's about it. We can do some concatenation. We can come on here and we can say, this is like putting a dot between a variable and something in HTML or in PHP. So we're going to tell it that it's in milliseconds, and I think that should be about it. We should be able to leave it there. And let's go to the plugin, and we're going to come back here. We can refresh this page, and you can see, which I did realize there's one downside to the way I did it, but let me see, is that showing up there? All right, so I can see that this is, just what it's doing here. So I can come here, and you can see at the top of the page now, it is loading, telling us that it took 127 milliseconds to load that page. If I come here to the admin, it's telling me, or to the account page, it tells me that it took 110 milliseconds. If I go to the dashboard, Let's see, is that getting stuck in there anywhere? It should be. Let's see. Not quite seeing it. Is it getting covered up? Nope, that was just something that had to be updated in UserSpice itself. So anyway, that's fixed. So on the dashboard now, you'll see all of these times that every single time I load up a page, I'm getting the number of milliseconds that it took for the page to load right up at the top. Now it's not formatted. I'm not doing anything crazy, but it's a debugging plugin. It doesn't need to be super fancy. I mean, I could maybe center it. Like, let's try that. I think that should work. So if I came up here to the header, I could just put that P align equals center and then drop those span tags in there. And let's see what happens. Let's refresh the page. Yeah, great. So it's in the center. So there is one other thing that I've honestly never used, and this could be a complete demo fail, but I realized that if you go into the database class, there is something way down the bottom called query count right here. Get query count. So we're going to try that. We're just going to see what happens. So we're going to come here to the footer and live demo. So we're going to make a variable called plugin query counter equals db. And then what we're going to do is we are going to take that variable and we're going to put it into, and this may not be perfect if something happens to load below this, but it'll give us an idea. This is pretty low on the page regardless of where you're at. So if we come in here and we do var plugin query counter equals, and then we're going to put that in double quotes, and then we're going to echo the PHP inside of it, and then we're going to take this and put this here and give it a semicolon. Oops, semicolon. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put a space here, and maybe we'll put a comma, and then we're going to do some more concatenation, and we're going to do plugin query counter, and then we're going to do db queries. Let's try that. So that's telling us that this home page is making 54 database queries. Maybe this is total. No, that's total. That many database queries are happening on these pages. So there's a lot of things going on, and this is just kind of giving us an idea, and you can kind of check and see if there's, now obviously there may not be any relation to the number of queries and the speed, because it just takes one to be a problem. But as you load these things, you can see what your database is doing, and I should probably put in at least Canadian. Now I did notice that this got bumped offside, so I might have to figure out what I did with my header there. But anyway, so that is the basics of making a plugin. That that's all it took. It took less than 15 minutes to write something that gave us all this functionality. Now there is one thing I do want to show you before I forget. And one of the coolest things is that when you go to the plugin manager, you can simply disable this, and all of a sudden now you're not going to see that. In fact, that centered it, which makes me realize that there's something in that plugin or the way that I'm calling those that's jacking up the language checker. So I can fix that, and that's probably more of a UserSpice issue. But less than 15 minutes, we wrote a plugin that gave us all that functionality that you can just turn it on, turn it off at will. Anyway, thanks for joining me.